Here's the most amazing thing that I found about the glymphatic system. It was only termed in 2012.
Wow.
So you'd think that the human body's about 6 foot long, and over the centuries, we would have cut open every single little bit of it and dissected this and everything. And in 2012, someone came up with discovered the glymphatic system in the brain. It's sort
strange that we wouldn't know about it until today. So it wasn't known at all?
No, it
wasn't called something else or part of another system?
Look, in the 1980s, they hypothesized there was some fluid that was going around the brain, but they didn't know what that was until somebody came up with the term glymphatic system. And glymphatic is names after glial cells in the brain, which is Greek for glue. So they thought that the glial cells were just brain cells that held the brain together.
Welcome to the ATP podcast. You're with your hosts, Steve and Jeff. G'day, Steve.
G'day, mate. How are you?
Glymphatic system.
Did you mispronounce something?
I don't know. Did I?
Glymphatic system.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Or is it lymphatic or glymphatic?
Well, I'm reading, so I'm saying glymphatic. But I mean, I've heard of the lymphatic system. Yes. And I think most people understand the lymphatic system, Steve, but no. Well, do you want to just briefly say what the lymphatic system is?
Sure, it's pretty easy. It's a second circulatory system that mops up all the excess fluid in your body. It's in every single organ in your body except for your eye and your brain. And it pumps about 14 to 16 litres. That's just, let's say, comes out of your veins and blood vessels and then just gets retaken back up and put back in the circulatory system. Pretty simple system. Yep. In the olden days when I did massage, we would do lymphatic drainage
towards
massage
the heart,
towards the heart. It was always
the heart. I did that at Water Street in Brisbane.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
You didn't tell me. I know you're a forklift driver.
Yeah, I was a forklift driver. Yeah. I was also a commercial cleaner. I was also a project manager. I also worked in the cattle industry. Oh. I also sold shares, raised capital for companies. Yeah, I've done a lot of things, Steve.
I didn't know about the massage.
Yes. Certified massage therapist, Steve. Yeah.
So, believe it or not, I did, my re-thing for my naturopathy, and I'm still qualified as a massage therapist to this very day.
It's good to know, Steve. After this table looks good.
Yeah. Has anyone got any problems?
Lube me up, buddy, and...
I feel sorry for the person because I'm not like experienced.
Your experience is fine, Steve.
It's not that kind of matter.
Okay.
What was the glymphatic?
Yeah. So anyway, in terms of the lymphatic system, and also people with lymphatic issues sometimes hold water retention, specifically in the lower limbs normally, in the legs. So this is where you get cankles as opposed to ankles.
Yep, that's right.
Is that a medical term?
It may as well be. Yeah, I like it. It's actually called elephantitis, which is worse.
Oh.
Because people get offended by that.
Well, people have seen me in the shower and said that I suffer from elephantitis, but I had to correct them and said, no, that's just natural.
But your ankles are really thin, though.
Yeah, they are. I'm not talking about my ankles, Steve.
Okay.
Anyway, but I think in terms of the glymphatic system, what is so obviously it sounds similar, so they must be related somehow.
They are.
Okay.
And here's the most amazing thing that I found about the glymphatic system. It was only termed in 2012.
Wow.
So you'd think that the human body's about 6 foot long, and over the centuries, we would have cut open every single little bit of it and dissected this and everything. And in 2012, someone came up with discovered the glymphatic system in the brain. It's
strange that we wouldn't know about it until today. So it wasn't known at all?
No, it
wasn't called something else or part of another system?
Look, in the 1980s, they hypothesized there was some fluid that was going around the brain, but they didn't know what that was until somebody came up with the term glymphatic system. And glymphatic is names after glial cells in the brain, which is Greek for glue. So they thought that the glial cells were just brain cells that held the brain together. Yeah, so they're pretty boring. So they call them glue cells.
What colour are they?
Oh, they're depending grey or white.
Well, I always say like the grey matter, right? I mean, you hear of that. What is use the old grey matter, and, but there is actually grey matter inside the brain.
There is grey matter, right. Absolutely.
And what does that do?
Well, it gives you the higher functions. So like the cerebral cortex is very rich in grey matter. So the cerebral cortex differs from a lot of other animals where we can have some control. Like you might have seen, National Geographic where two snakes come along and just have sex like that. You know what I mean? And they wrap up and have sex, and there's no restriction.
There's
no,
hey, would you like to go out for a date? There's no...
That's right.
Swipe left or right on Tinder. See, I don't know. So.
Isn't it? Oh, I do. I do.
But no, it's just like they just go for it, and it's kind of a bit of a messy squid fest.
The grey matter gives us a higher, like for example, if we can regulate our eating. I should take it off sex and go back to eating.
I don't know. Those two are linked for me, Steve.
No, but they sort of are, aren't they? I mean, because, otherwise, you just eat everything in sight and get fat and diet. And people go on diets and they can regulate what they eat and control, and they have it at lunchtime. But animals just...
What are we talking about? Sorry. Anyway, go back. Yeah.
Trying to keep it clean. So they can just go on and, they can regulate what they eat. So that's what grey matter does. It gives us that secondary thinking.
Right.
Cerebral cortex. It just puts a temper on our urges,
Maybe even the Neanderthals did when they didn't have as much, if you believe in Neanderthals, Steve, which I'm sure you do. I've met a few in my time, actually. But no, so these people, obviously, they had a smaller frontal lobe.
Yep.
So therefore they would have been more urge-driven and less sophisticated.
Correct. And they couldn't afford to be very, urged. They had to be urge-driven because, they...
Fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
It's the quick and the dead.
They only died when they were 40, so they couldn't just have the luxury. They had to reproduce quickly because a lot of childbirth deaths, so they had to just keep at it, like most species. And, as the brain grew in the hominoids, they developed systems and all this sort of thing, and now we live a long time in comparison. I mean, in the turn of the century, our average age is 47.
I know. Yeah.
So I'm dead.
Yeah.
By 5 years. I mean,
Well, nutrition's got a big part to play about that. I mean, I was listening to the slaves back in Egypt, the Jewish people. They found the average age was actually 32 to 36 is when they died, and they could tell that through the bones, and I think through the malnutrition and all that sort of stuff, teeth and all that sort of stuff. It's fascinating. So obviously, today, understanding of nature, better understanding of science and how those things correlate. But okay, so the glymphatic system is exactly what, Steve?
Sure. Well, let's say it's something that only operates mainly when you're asleep. So when someone dies, the glymphatic system fails to exist. Basically connects the arteries in the brain with the veins in the brain. And it's a basic fluid flow that goes through the brain tissue, takes wastes out and dumps it in the vein.
Right.
So it operates primarily when you're asleep.
Well, and Steve, it's one of those fascinating things. I remember hearing, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because there's always a lot of wrong consensus out there, but the scientists didn't know what sleep was really for.
Correct.
And they didn't understand the importance of sleep. They knew that we needed it because, they've done sleep deprivation, and we know that people go crazy, right?
Yes, they do.
They start hallucinating and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, there was this one in Russia where I think people started tearing themselves and others to pieces and just going completely, one flew over the cuckoo's nest.
Yep.
So obviously this is part
very much
of the importance of sleep.
And part of the podcast is on sleep because when you sleep, that's when this glymphatic system action happens.
So effectively, it's an ability to remove wastes.
Correct. That's what we know it does. And we know this because if you deprive someone of sleep for one night, you can measure a buildup of these things called beta-amyloid proteins in the brain. Wow. So that's after one night of lack of sleep. And there's a paper in here, which we'll put up here, which shows that the title actually says, and I'll just read this out for people who are listening. It says, beta-amyloid accumulation in the human brain after one night of sleep deprivation.
Okay, so what's the problem, I guess, with the buildup of this amyloid?
Sure. Amyloid? It's famous for being one of the precursors for a disease called Alzheimer's disease. Huh. So this is really scary stuff. So like you got to remember, people... We know some things that cause things like Alzheimer's disease and neurodegeneration, and that is things like the 𝗕𝗿𝘆𝘆𝗺𝗺 genes, and very much it's dietary related. We know it's diabetes related and a few other things.
Yeah, well, aluminium has been
correct.
There's been links there, Steve. Do we know how that sort of impacts on the brain?
Sure. Metals in the brain, and we'll call them, aluminium is a metal, so is mercury, and some of the more, we'll call them toxic minerals.
Yep.
They stimulate free radical release.
Right.
Okay. And oxidation is a loss of electron. Yep. So with metals and I'll just pick one that we all know is iron. Fe can form Fe2+ or Fe3+. There's a process from 2+ to 3+, which is losing an electron, because an electron is a negative. So you lose negative, you gain a positive.
Yep.
So it goes from 2+3, and that is actually oxidation of iron.
Wow.
And if you look at iron as a metal, just Fe0 charge, it rusts, that's oxidation. So in the brain, of course, you get these toxic metals which cause free radical damage in the brain, and you literally damage your genome in your brain.
Wow.
So that's one way we know that Alzheimer's perpetuates. The other way is type 2 diabetes.
Really?
Yeah. And in fact, Alzheimer's is now starting to be called type 3 diabetes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And we didn't know where the link was because, you think, okay, diabetes is bad for your limbs and everything else, your brain, sure. But now we know that when you have type 2 diabetes, it slows down the glymphatic system by 2 to 3 times.
Wow.
So you can see it makes a big full circle. And the glymphatic system, we know, gets rid of these wastes. And it occurs when you sleep. So if you are a bad sleeper, you're going to have a bad glymphatic system.
Which could potentially lead, depending on your genetics, your predisposition, to serious diseases such as Alzheimer's.
And Parkinson's and all sorts. Absolutely.
Wow.
And we know, of course, that if you are a poor sleeper and also how you sleep is a problem too. Now, I don't know if you've seen those beds where they prop people up like at a bit of an angle.
Yep.
Okay, well, that stops the glymphatic system.
Really?
Yes.
So you got to be flat.
You got to be flat and even better on your side. And we know this. What?
I'm a side sleeper, Steve.
Yes, good. What's good for your brain?
But it's funny because back sleepers are, and then you got front sleepers.
Yeah, it's bad for your glymphatic system.
Really?
And how we know this is because back in 2012 when we were looking at the glymphatic system, the way they measured it was, and you can't do this in humans, but you get a rat and you inject it with a radioactive dye into the brain and you watch the glymphatic system in action if you put them under like a PET scanner.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you can't do that to humans, but you can do it to rats. And you can see that the way the rat is positioned when they knock it out or put it to sleep is to see when the glymphatic system's working or not. And the best position for the rat was on its side. Now, in humans, it seems to be the same sort of thing, but we can't radioactive inject them into that.
Do you have any, and you probably don't know this, but how many, percentage-wise, how many people are back sleepers to side sleepers to front sleepers?
Wouldn't have a clue.
I reckon, and I'd throw some numbers here, I reckon 5% would be front sleepers.
Yeah.
And I reckon maybe 25% might be a back sleeper. Are you a front sleeper, Brooko?
Really?
So strange. Tony is as well too. Do you? Yeah, so does Tony.
Really?
Yeah. You know what you need is a hole cut in your bed so that you can actually, kind of like a massage table, so you can actually, We
were talking about lymphatic massage. You could fall asleep like that. So the glymphatic system's really tricky like that. It's like, because you got to remember, the reason why it hadn't been discovered is because you get a cadaver there, you cut their brain open into sections.
Cadaver?
Yeah, just a dead body.
It's a cadaver.
Oh, cadaver.
Oh, do you say MacGyver or MacGyver?
Oh, MacGyver, of course.
Well, yeah, but it's not a cadaver.
Cadaver, okay.
It's a cadaver.
Cadaver.
I'll just let's not have a controversy over how to say controversy, all right?
Okay.
I've never heard of it called a cadaver.
Oh, I don't know. My stupid Aussie Anglican accent, maybe, with that sort of thing. Yeah. So if you got the brain open of a dead body, you can't see any lymphatic flow because the heart stopped and they're dead.
Right.
So you'll never be able to discover it unless they're sleeping. So even when they're awake, the glymphatic system stops.
Wow.
So, and you're right. You hit on the nail on the head before when you said, what is sleep for? We know that it also forms new memories. So,
really?
Yeah. So it helps consolidate memories. We know that.
What, into the long term?
Long-term memory.
Right.
So it takes your daily information and sorts out what was important. Like if you asked me tomorrow, I'll think of something random, like how many leads there are, around. We're doing recording and there's lots of leads everywhere. My eyes can see them all and I can easily count them in milliseconds. But tomorrow I wouldn't have a clue how many leads there were because it's not relevant information.
It's like when you brushed your teeth last week, how many seconds did you brush your teeth for?
No,
not that Steve. Steve does practice good oral hygiene. He brushes his teeth every day. And it's funny, I think I heard, and I don't know if this is true, that as we get older, time seems to go faster. Like things go quicker because we condense more of our memories into what's considered to be useless and superfluous information. When you're a child, so many experiences and things that you have are new. And this is the least on life, right? And this is why trying things new actually keeps you young because you actually get more from life. If you live the same repetitive, boring and mundane life, you live a short life. even if you have the same amount of time, because you haven't lived with any sort of fulfillment, because you're not experiencing new things, which actually gives the body or the brain, the memory, the mind zest.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So this is why doing new things, taking on new projects, it actually helps to keep you active, young, and you squeeze more out of life, even if you're awake the same amount of hours, right?
Of course it is. And that's what we've all got to do. And so this is what I love about doing these podcasts is someone comes up with an idea. It's Brooklyn usually who comes up, says, oh, we'll do one on the glymphatic system. I say, okay, because the glymphatic system was discovered in 2012. Okay, so I did most of my studies in the 90s and early 2000s. It hadn't even been named then.
I'm glad he said 2000s. I think 1890s.
Yes.
1790s.
1890s, 1790s. Yeah. You remember the 1790s, that's when the first fleet came out to Australia. It was 1778. I was there.
Waving them.
I was on the first fleet.
Yeah.
That's how I got my skipper's license.
I'm not surprised, Steve. No one's really surprised.
No.
Anyway, that was good, Steve.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's pretty incredible that this whole new system has been set up. But it opens up a whole can of worms, because if we know that it detoxifies the brain of these plaques that cause Alzheimer's, and we can modify the glymphatic system by how we sleep, when we sleep and all that sort of thing, it opens up a completely new area of the treatment of diseases like Alzheimer's disease.
So what, sleeping more?
Sleeping more, but sleeping with a better quality.
Right.
So here's a bit of trickiness. To get into your deep wave of sleep where the glymphatic system works.
Okay, well, that was my next question, is that when? Because, I mean, I know that different organs in the body operate at different times of the night.
Correct.
So for the glymphatics, so can you give me some examples, Steve? Because I can't remember off the top of my head. Like the liver works at a certain time, the kidneys work at a certain time.
That's right.
Yeah.
There are times in the night when they do that. Like the liver was 1 till 3, I think, in the morning when it's more active.
Right.
And you got to remember, sleeping is an active process.
Yeah.
You got to remember in the old days when I was coming out in the first fleet, sleep was just, they thought, you just rest and that's the end of it. But it's a very, very active process. And the brain consumes, it's about 2% of the weight, but it's about 20% of the calories. And at night, that doesn't change much. So the brain is still very, very active at night. Yet most of us wake up in the morning and go, did you sleep right? I was like, yeah, I think so. I didn't. I went for a pee once. But that's all I remember in the last 8 hours. But it's very, very active at night. One of the activities is this glymphatic system. And it's forming these new memories in the brain via the hippocampus, which is a part of the brain that forms new memories. Yeah. So sleep is now becoming this thing that's quite important. It's usually like, you got to remember in an average, doctor's setting, it's like, you try and get a good night's sleep. And that's all there is to it. But it's more important than that. And if we know that it can help get rid of these plaques in your brain, we can start protecting against diseases like Alzheimer's disease.
So when does the brain typically then start cleaning out the glymphatic system?
Usually when you go in your deep REM sleeps.
Right. So the
deeper.
And we sleep in waves, correct, Steve? And then these waves are about, is it 45 minutes? I forget.
About 2 hours apart.
But, right. So it peaks and then comes down. Yeah. And then.
Peaks again.
But if this is consciousness here, right, sort of at zero, you sort of come down and waves and comes down deeper and then.
Comes up, yeah.
Right,
absolutely.
But it keeps going down, right? Like on a 45 sort of degree angle with waves.
It does. And then towards the morning, it comes up again.
Yeah. And then you break conscious level, which is zero, obviously.
Correct. Yeah. And then you wake up and, and
so it's in any of those troughs, or is it when you're right down the very deep of the bottom of the sleep?
Troughs.
So probably if you're going to bed at, say, 10 o'clock at night and you're waking at, say, 6 o'clock in the morning, somewhere around that sort of 3 to 5 in the morning sort of time? Because that would be your deepest sleep typically.
Well, actually, the deepest sleep is around midnight. If you go to bed at 10, it's the early part of the night.
Really? I always thought, Steve, that it goes in waves deeper and then shoots up at the end. But does it go off a cliff?
It goes off a cliff.
Oh,
it really goes off a cliff.
That.
No, you should see it. It's quite amazing. It goes off a cliff and then it starts to sort of slowly work its way up.
It goes the opposite way.
And that's why the earlier you get to bed, that's the most important sleep. Getting up in the morning is better than staying up late at night.
I hate that, Steve, because I'm a night owl.
I know you are.
Problem, right?
I know, but it doesn't matter because you start your deep sleep at midnight.
Right.
Unless you take a whole lot of caffeine and then you're in trouble.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because I'm thinking about some of the other podcasts that we've done, and certainly on the, and the work that Sash and Panda did, but also on sleep cycles, the circadian rhythm. And caffeine of any sort, especially late in the evening, can be a real problem. And actually, that's one of the things we're doing at the moment. We're actually developing a pre-workout with that doesn't have caffeine in it, but is designed to improve your effectiveness of your train, but without the caffeine stim, because a lot of people are starting to really switch into this. If you're using and look, I don't mind stimulants, and caffeine I think is fantastic for fat loss, and for performance, for puppadums, right? But it's great, but if sleep is important to you, or if you've got problems with sleep, because the half-life of caffeine, you can have a coffee or caffeine in the afternoon, and you're still feeling it at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, even if you're able to get to sleep. But it's that deep sleep that's causing the problem, right?
It blocks the deep sleep. And so also common medications block deep sleep that you wouldn't associate with sleep.
Really? Like what?
Like aspirin.
No way.
Aspirin blocks deep sleep.
Well, actually, aspirin preserves the half-life of caffeine.
It does too, yeah.
But so if you have any caffeine, so your half-life is actually just doubled.
Yeah, but it does that, but it also, in its own way, it blocks the prostaglandins, which are involved in sleep process. Because aspirin, prostaglandins can be inflammatory, but they also do lots of other things. So if you block them, then you block that deep sleep. So if you're, and I mean aspirin, like even arthritis drugs.
Oh, because I was going to say, because I don't think people use aspirin as much as what they used to, Steve. People are all on paracetamol now.
Yeah.
Right? And other drugs. What's codeine and...
codeine phosphate?
Yeah, and what's the other one that's used in Nurofen?
Ibuprofen. Well, that's an aspirin-based drug that blocks the prostaglandins. That stuff.
So that does?
Yep. All those ones like Mobic, Celebrex, Voltaren, any of those anti-inflammatories, they disrupt your sleep. So guess what happens when you get older is you're on a lot of those drugs.
Yeah, right.
And they disrupt your sleep. And you also, the glymphatic system in old rats are down by 80 to 90% as well. So as you age, your glymphatic system becomes very problematic. It just doesn't work as much. So you can't get rid of these plaques. And so they're hypothesizing that the buildup of these plaques lead to Alzheimer's disease as you age.
Okay, so the old story is, right, that nobody's exactly the same, but they do say you need to be getting your 8 hours of sleep a night.
Yes.
Now, I've said this before. Tony needs like 9.
Yeah.
Otherwise she's, but by default then, if that's true, other people can probably take 7 and just be equally as rested.
Absolutely fine, yeah.
Because I find if I get any more than about 7 hours, I'm kind of a bit...
Yeah, it feels a bit weird.
Well, I find it even hard to get to sleep at night. Now, maybe that's training myself, but I've been trying to go to bed early. I've actually been trying to get more sleep. I've just been feeling really stressed out and tired. And I think it's because my brain becomes very active in the evening. And again, I think that has a lot to do with what you do, what you consume, like, TV, listening to podcasts or what have you, versus reading a book or just listening to some, nice relaxing music, turning the lights down. But the whole thing is that my phone tells me before I go to sleep, 30 minutes, time to start winding down. Oh. Which is actually pretty smart. Yeah. And it is good. Yeah. So, and that's true. So if you're watching bright lights or, what have you, or you're taking in stimulus into your eyes, and then you find it difficult to get to sleep. But my question is that how long do you need for the glymphatic system to work properly? You need the sleep that they found was at least 6 hours, if that's what you're asking. Yes. They need that for the glymphatic system, but it's all about the quality of the sleep. Right. If you're getting, and also how you sleep. As I said, if you sleep like, if you sleep like, and I've seen it in hospitals, where people sleep upright in hospitals, and usually older people, and they sleep upright, that's very bad for your glymphatic system. And if you're one of those people who sleep like that, or you sleep on a couch, sitting up in your chair and that sort of thing, that's, like people say, I slept a couple of hours during the day in the chair. Yeah. I'll go to bed, sleep another 5 hours. It doesn't work like that. You need to really lie down. That's really interesting. Well, because, like the old hammocks that they used to use in boats and stuff like that, right? You're never really lying flat. No. My father used to fall asleep in his lazy boy all the time. Yeah. All the time. Loved it, right? And he'd have a couple of hours power nap. He was in his 80s. But that's actually not good. Better off going down and having an hour kept lying down flat, right? Exactly. And there's these papers coming out here about sleep as a therapeutic target in the aging brain. Wow. So they're actually using sleep as a medicine, which is incredibly
interesting, and they're talking throughout this about preventing Alzheimer's disease, and they've hypothesised that you can prevent Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease by up to 30%.
Well, Steve, you know that we've been working on looking at sleep and improving sleep quality, and we've got some ideas around how to improve that. Because, I mean, again, if you look at today's society, when we're consistently bombarded by radio waves, I mean, obviously we've got, 5G towers popping up everywhere, not, whatever. But there's radio waves, there's microwaves, there's all sorts of radiation that we're dealing with. There's pollution, there's stimulants, there's chemicals, there's everything, right? We're constantly bombarded and assaulted. Sleep quality, setting yourself up for a good quality sleep, can be doing things like not having any caffeine before you go to bed, turning off the Wi-Fi at home, keeping your phone at a distance away from you. Now, most people, because their phone is also their alarm, sits with their phone right next to them, right?
Probably on charge.
So the best thing to do is to actually, if you can be bothered, and the funny thing is I was doing this and become a bit lazy, but I'm going to start doing it again, put your phone at your dresser, like, on your, so you actually have to get out of bed, right? I mean, you're getting up anyway, right? So just if you need the extra 10 minutes, just set the alarm 10 minutes later and enjoy it without an interrupted sleep.
Correct.
But don't put your phone right next to your head. Don't look at bright lights or maybe watch television and then straight away go to bed. Maybe take that, they reckon 20 minutes to wind down completely.
Correct.
Even if that's just, as I said, maybe just doing a little bit of reading and not off a screen, actually off a page.
Off a book.
It's funny because a friend of mine works in secondary childcare education, and there's a lot of discovery around writing on a pen and paper with retention and memory as opposed to using computers and tablets. That shows that writing is actually more profound at retention and learning than what it is actually using tablets and typing.
I suppose because, and I don't know
Different
the
parts
reason.
of the brain, I guess.
I guess this is how I'm writing my letters. Instead of doing an A and B,
maybe.
I'm doing that, which is like, doesn't really mean anything. It's just
Don't know.
that.
Maybe it's something we can look into. But anyway, in terms of, I guess, preparing yourself as well too.
Yeah.
So if you do all those things, no caffeine, wind down, take your phone away from you, make sure that it's very dark and all those sorts of things. That's obviously a good way to set up your glymphatic system for...
Great thing, and get your sleep on your side if you can. But let's take the phone thing, because that's very important. Okay. Also, you may want to put your phone on flight mode, because then it's not going to try and ping it's not going to pump out radio waves to hit the signals nearby.
There's a book called Radiation Nation that talks about, especially if you've got poor service where you are, it's actually more dangerous, because if it's 1 bar or 2 bar, the phone actually has to work harder to actually get the signal. Yeah. So I think it I don't know exactly. I'm not an expert on it, but yeah. So you're better off putting it on flight mode, whacking it like at the end of your bed. I think the guy was saying from Radiation Nation, which is an interesting book, that for every foot that you put the phone away from you, the signal halves in terms of the impact that it has on your body, specifically your brain. So if you put it, 12 feet away from you, you should be pretty much all sweet.
Very good.
Yeah.
And flight mode. Because that just stops it. Because do you really want to be getting messages in the middle of the night? I mean, who wants that? And I go to bed pretty early, about 9ish, and often friends of mine message me at 9:30, and I put my phone on flight mode, so in the morning I get it. Because I don't know, like, they're never that important. It's not
your friends are important, Steve.
Well, they are, but the messages,
are very important, Steve.
The messages are like, oh, yeah, we're going fishing or whatever, or, did you get the cocaine or anything, those sort of messages that they
seems reasonable.
Typically send through.
Yeah.
So I can get back to them in the morning about their drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
So, that's quite normal. But so you don't need the message, 24/7. And again, even from caveman days, we never had that system. Even 20 years ago, we never had that system.
So you go to bed at 9, Steve. What time do you get up in the morning?
4:30.
Yeah, right. So what's that, about 7.5?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, okay.
About 8:30
And then go for your run?
Yeah, go for a run or gym this morning. Did legs, as you can tell by my sexy legs. I can't see my sexy legs, but if you could, you just imagine gorgeous legs. No cankles here.
No.
No cankles here.
No.
But if I...
Steggles legs, which is a form of chicken, right?
Yes.
Delicious thighs.
Delicious thighs. See, Brooklyn has to keep her eyes off them all day. It's a bit embarrassing.
I know.
She can't, she can't, but, what do you do? I don't mind anymore.
No.
I just,
just go with it.
Girls, all of them do.
Well, you know what? You should really stop wearing those A-frame miniskirts, Steve.
But I love the miniskirts.
Yeah, well, actually, you know what? In today's day and age, you can if you want.
And it's warm these days, so, get a bit of sun and it's good.
A little draft.
Yeah.
Keep things nice and cool down there? Absolutely. Well, that went very strange, didn't it?
Goodness me. But if I did have cankles, it'd be my lymphatic system problems.
Right.
So,
nice segue.
Trying to bend it back into the...
All right. So, Steve, what else do we need to learn about the glymphatic system?
All right. So probably one of the most important things is that we now know that the glymphatic system is very badly affected by dysglycemia, sugars in your blood.
Right.
So if you've got bad blood sugars, type 2 diabetes, which is a million people.
Yeah.
Your glymphatic system is depressed by 2 to 3-fold.
Right. So sugar bad for brain.
Sugar bad for the brain. Now, we've known for...
Sorry, but I'm talking to a scientist here. So
that's all right.
My Neanderthal, sugar bad for brain.
Sugar bad for about 4 different systems of the body mainly.
Right.
The first one's the eyes, because you got to remember in the eyes there's no insulin resistance. So if you've got if you've got high blood sugar levels, if you put it this way, and in your brain, so if you've got insulin resistance, your brain would shut down. Because there's no blockage there, the amount of sugar in your blood equals the amount of sugar in your brain.
So does that have an effect on the cornea as far as it becoming cloudy and
Yep.
So is this why we're needing to wear glasses? Steve?
Oh no, glasses different. But you heard of diabetic retinopathy and all these sorts of things. No. Diabetic blindness.
Oh yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the eyes are. This is the end. Well, not the end.
They used to call it sugar blindness.
Sugar blindness. Yeah, absolutely. And the other organs that are affected, the kidneys.
Right.
Because you can get and the nerves because they can't regulate how much sugar comes in. So if you've got high blood sugar levels, it just goes straight into your kidneys and damages them. Straight in the eyes damages them. Straight in the brain damages them.
Wow.
So the brain is really adversely affected by high blood sugar levels. Now this is also if you eat junk food because your sugar levels will go up quite high. Like if you have a big bowl of ice cream that's full of sugar or anything full of sugar, and a lot of people eat a lot of sugar. Maybe not people listening to this podcast, but average Joe, have you seen the supermarket aisles? There's packets of lollies everywhere.
Yeah.
So if you eat a big load of sugar, the sugar spikes, and that's bad for your brain for that time. And then hopefully it goes back down. In diabetes, it goes up and stays up 24/7.
So one of the ways to have your cake and eat it too, Steve, like that,
yes, is
to train. Exercise, right?
Train.
Because that then helps to open up the doorways, shuttle the sugars into the cells, specifically, muscle cells and liver cells and things like that, where that energy can be stored and used, but also burning it up at the same time, right? Yeah. So exercise obviously must have an important role on the glymphatic system, I imagine.
Incredibly
important
does,
role. Right?
It does. Yeah. And it has an important role in your sleep too, which helps your glymphatic system. So exercise is one of the best things you can do for your glymphatic system as well. We could go on forever about how it's good for everything else, but as far as your glymphatic system, burns sugars, gets rid of those, so you won't get the diet. Because we know that, that Alzheimer's was caused type 3 diabetes.
Right.
How we called it that because it was so related to type 2 diabetes. They call it type 3 diabetes. Now we know it's via the glymphatic system because the glymphatic system just goes down. You get the toxic buildup in your brain. And if you've ever felt tired and not slept enough and your brain feels quite...
Foggy
is the word.
Yep.
Now, they've done tests on people.
Fog.
Yeah. They've done tests on people with brain fog and they look at the neurochemistry and it's all normal. They can't figure out, well, why is all the neurotransmitters normal? And it's because of the toxins in there. You can't directly measure them in the brain. Huh. So now we know it's just a buildup of toxins in your brain.
There you go.
And if you go to bed the next night, you'll sleep, lymphatic system kicks in, the toxins will go, and you'll feel good again.
I've got a question for you, Steve.
All right.
What happens if you've got people that are listening to this podcast who have gone, oh my gosh, for 30 plus years, I've had crap sleep. I've been a shift worker or I just push myself and, I've cut my sleeping down to 5-6 hours a night when I know that I need a little bit more. And also as a subset to that, what about your front sleepers and your back sleepers? So first question first.
All right.
What happens if you had years and years and years of abuse and you didn't know it? Can this be reversed?
Yes. And that's the good news about this because the plaques themselves, and again, the mechanism is not completely understood, but the plaques stimulate free radicals.
Yep.
So the plaques have got to be there in the first place for Alzheimer's. And I think not Alzheimer's, but you could say Parkinson's.
How do you deplaque the brain?
You sleep.
Right.
And that will clear it up after one night.
Antioxidants would probably play a role too.
Absolutely. And also hormones.
What about fats?
Fats, essential fatty acids like the unsaturated fats are very good for the brain.
Yep.
So hormones is the other classic one. So if you've got plenty of testosterone like you and I.
I've got plenty, Steve. I can give you some.
Well, I've got plenty of it too. And if you've got plenty of estrogen
Who's got
too.
more?
I've got heaps. So there was a big trial that was underdone to try and get rid of the beta-amyloid plaques using hormones.
Yeah.
And they gave them HRT, which is
hormone replacement therapy.
Correct.
Right.
Which is the start. And so they thought, well, this is the guy. What it did was they found was that it increased Alzheimer's disease.
You know what? Yeah. You know, funny thing is, Steve, I was thinking before, all the advice that we give goes back to sleep well, avoid sugars, train. Yeah. How many podcasts do we have on the different functions within the body where we all say the same thing and avoid, the overuse of too many medications, right?
Exactly.
So
this was published in Pharmacological Research 2020, and I'll just read one of the highlighted bits. It says a significant association between hormone therapy and all-cause dementias was observed. So significant association, 16%. So it increases, HRT increases dementias by 16%.
Wow.
And this was thought to be the thing that would cure it because hormones are curing it. But can you see the difference between...
Synthetic versus nature.
Correct. Because
and again, this is why we look. Someone was asking me the other day, "Am I against synthetic vitamins?" No, but not if it's a bit from time to time can actually work quite well.
Correct.
Right? So yes, if you're using vitamins and all the rest of it, but if it's fortified every day and you're getting it all the time, the way I look at it is that your body doesn't have the ability to be able to detoxify them if you're getting too many.
Correct.
And so yes, while they can be of some benefit, this is why I like nature. This is why we keep saying nature knows best. This is why we like natural, greens, powders, natural formulas, eating fresh, local, what's in season. I mean, it's really funny. We have a supplement company and people are always saying, oh, yeah, but you're just saying that to sell supplements. No, not at all, actually. We care about people's health and we provide tools for them if they need them, right? But as far as eating fresh, eating local, eating what's in season, removing as many toxins, and that means, artificial things and that as possible, I think is great.
Yeah.
Now, is that realistic in today's, age that you can do all that completely? I'd find maybe one person in 1,000 that could probably do it.
Very
but
tough.
I think if people can make adjustments, where they can reduce the bad and increase the good, that's going to help a lot.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And what they did in another trial was they gave men, because you got to remember women get more Alzheimer's than men by a factor of 2 or 3. It's quite incredible.
Yep.
There is quite a sexism towards neurological problems in women. They get vastly more neurological problems. Yeah. If you're someone who identifies as a man and you take natural hormones like natural testosterone, it reduces Alzheimer's disease. That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's strange.
So it has to be a natural hormone.
But again, it's all about actually helping the body's pathways, remove the handbrakes, supply the nutrients which support the natural mechanisms within the body to perform, as opposed to dampening down the body's natural responses and or trying to put, force things to happen, right?
Correct.
If you support your body's natural secretion and natural utilization, that's the mechanism. That's the way that we were geared to work, right? So,
exactly.
Yeah.
So the key to this whole thing, really, I mean, the things that cause neurological diseases are the classic ones like strokes, diabetes, hypertension, obesity, dyslipidemia. They all increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So they're completely modifiable by lifestyle.
The other thing I'm really interested, Stephen, I imagine we're coming kind of to the end. Are there any more papers? Because the other thing I'm really interested in is, it's funny, before we started this podcast with this, the whole state of the world and, just everything going a little bit crazy at the moment, Steve, it's easy to get upset. It's easy to get down. And it's funny because I was talking to some people the other day and they had some serious illness. I won't mention which type. And I said, one of the best things that you can do after you've done all of this, strip out the alcohol, drink plenty of really clean water and, just remove a lot of the stresses and, toxins on the body, is go watch funny movies. Go listen to, and we were listening to some music today like Mr. Blue Sky from Electric Light. It's fun, right? It's fun and it makes you feel good. I don't understand why people watch horror films and, demon possessed stuff and, they're watching that sort of stuff. to give yourself, I guess people want to feel something, right? But I mean, the hormones that the body produces, cortisol and all the rest of it, versus endorphins, versus things that actually make you feel good. The old saying was that as you think, so you are. And if you focus on what's noble, what's good, what's fun, what's carefree, and I appreciate we live in the real world and ignorance is bliss, I think they say, but I think you need time out of that toxic stress and all the rest of it just to relax and have fun.
Absolutely you do.
So in terms of humour, have we seen how that affects the brain, Steve? Is that anywhere related to this, or is that another podcast?
It's another complete podcast, but it does benefit the entire body. We could do a podcast on humour and the human body.
Well, mentioning
good title
that, Steve,
already.
Well, I've got something for you, Steve.
Yeah.
And I was learning this the other day, right? I mean, clowns are scary. Have you seen like it? Like Pennywise? I mean, and there were actually serial killers that were clowns and all the rest of it. So clowns are scary. But Steve, if ever you're walking down a dark alley,
right,
and you're attacked by, would you say a gang of clowns or a group of clowns, or I don't know what?
It's not a gaggle of clowns.
Gaggle of clowns. I don't know, whatever they are, right? A humour of clowns. I don't know.
Humour of clowns.
I don't know. Do you know what you do?
What?
Go for the juggler.
Juggler.
Do you like that?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That's not bad.
That's a good.
Yeah,
that's quite a clever one actually. That's a really good one.
Anyway, a bit of humour, Steve, just to brighten up your day.
It is a bit of humour, and I think a podcast on humour would be good because you could really have some fun with it. Because I mean, really,
I like it. Boom, Steve.
I'm just trying to get into it.
You see, tell him with the face there. He didn't even mean that, did he?
Yeah,
no, you didn't, eh?
It's funny. One of my favourite.
You're even funny when you're not even trying to be funny. I used to give.
Actually,
talks. That's what your wife says when you take off your pants.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just like that's hilarious. Yeah.
As everyone, probably my most favourite talk I ever did with somebody. Like I've done talks over the years for many things.
Was with me when?
Oh yeah, well I've done some good ones with you. Handbrakes of Health. That was really good fun.
Yeah.
But I did.
Oh, one even better.
Yeah. Well, I did one that was called Laughter as Medicine, and with Dr. Patch Adams.
Did you do it with Patch?
Patch. Yeah. Do you know Dr. Patch Adams?
I do. Robin Williams made a film.
Yeah.
No, he did.
Yeah, I know.
About the Gesundheit clinic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you haven't watched that movie, by the way, go watch it.
Oh, it's a great movie.
I'm amazed it hasn't been banned because it actually talks about humour being important. And if you treat the disease, you may win or you may lose. But if you treat the patient,
you win every time.
You win every time.
But Patch Adams, normally when someone else is speaking at a conference, he and I were the keynote speakers, and he was speaking in the morning and I was speaking in the afternoon, and I thought, how do I follow him? And I just sat there, and normally I like to listen to people what they're talking about before I bugger off and come back and do my speech later. But I couldn't leave the room. I was sitting there, and it was so engaging. And you got to remember, Robin Williams was a shorter man. Patch is massive, and he's got half colour hair. And people ask him about that. He said, ask me anything. Why have you got half colour hair? He says, that opens up a conversation with the person.
Wow.
And because he's all about treating people and about humour. And he says he used to see.
Where's Patch now? We need Patch now.
Well, he was in America this is about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And,
the movie I think's like 20 years old.
Oh, yeah.
What year was the movie? Patch Adams.
Yeah, well,
and seriously, it's a great film.
Yeah.
It's actually quite sad too.
It is sad.
Based on a true story, right?
It is.
I think it actually had. Wait. Potter. What's her first name? Do you remember her? No. Monica Potter.
Right.
Played his love interest in the film.
Right.
I'm not going to say any more. Great film. Controversial at the time. I think more controversial now, unfortunately. But I think we're regressing in a lot of ways, Steve.
He was funny, but he was always about, and he had a waiting list for years, and he'd only see 2 patients a day. I was telling you, I had lunch with him and, breakfast, stay at the same hotel as me, so we catch up, because he never watched TV either. It's like, wow, never. He'd just read books and all that sort of thing, and very approachable guy. We'd walk down to the we did a 3-day conference with him, and every morning we'd walk down with him, and people would just, he would just attract them. And he didn't give it, he loved it. He really loved it. And he was a very smart doctor too. He would normally talk about humour, and then he'd throw in some biochemistry or something. Whoa, that's really clever. So he wasn't just all clowning around. But God, he was engaging, and then I had to get up and speak after him, and you can just imagine.
I wouldn't want to be there, Steve.
No, it was a
sounds terrible.
But no one would want to go on breaks or anything. He was the most engaging speaker. Huh. He was just such a good guy, so engaging. But it was all about humour, and gee. If that wasn't the best medicine, it's got to be. But as I always...
Well, a merry heart doth good like medicine. That's what it says in the Bible, which is interesting.
What's that?
And I think we're also seeing a lot of people like Patch and other people like that as well too, talking about humour. And as I was saying, as I said, when I came in this morning, just listening to the state of affairs and look, I'm not even going to talk about my viewpoint. I kind of can't anymore anyway. But I am really upset. I'm just really, to my soul, upset. And it's funny, and I was even talking to Tony about that as well too. And you know the things that help a lot?
What's that?
Talking to people, I think, is one thing. Humour and finding things in life that you actually enjoy. Surrounding yourself with people and friends, watching funny movies, laughing. Because we've only got the moment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can't control what's going to happen tomorrow. And hugs. Big one.
Yeah.
𝗕𝗿𝘆𝘆𝗺𝗫. What is it again? What is it that you get from hugs? Remember Dr. 𝗕𝗿𝘆𝗺𝗺𝗁 was talking about it. That feel-good
oxytocin?
Hormone. Oxytocin.
Yeah, right, okay.
Which typically, it's
a love.
Very good. Very good for you. And the babies need it, skin-on-skin contact and I'm not getting sexual, but I mean in terms of, hugging your wife or hugging your partner or whoever, like just that is so, so important. And I'll give you a hug after this, Steve.
Good.
But we need to. I can tell he's looking at me like, he was leaning in a little bit. So, yeah. But it's all right. It's all right. I'll do it off camera.
Yeah.
It could get a bit weird, especially if I take off my shirt. Steve's already got his pants off, so
never on.
The more skin, Steve.
Yeah,
you need skin to skin contact, right? It's a manly hug. Not one of these little girly.
Be honest, I've got a skirt on under here, as we've talked about. So
yes,
it's still a lot of skin showing, so that's good.
That's good.
Yeah, the girls love it.
Depends on who you ask, really.
Yeah.
Or
if you ask HR here, they don't like it.
No, they don't. No.
That's all right.
But remember, and I just want to add something as well too before we sign off, Steve.
Okay.
Do we have anything else on the glymphatic system?
Only that it's a role in headaches, and there's now papers coming out showing that the type 3 diabetes is now what they're calling Alzheimer's disease. So that's it. It's involved in headaches as well. So get your glymphatic system working. You may reduce your headaches.
Yeah. Well, that's really, really good.
Pretty much it.
Yeah. And what I was going to say as well too is that I think outside of unplugging from the system and the fear machine, which is the mainstream media, which you certainly need to do, go read some books and get, some distraction in a good way, I think is good as well too. Not that you want to live with your head in the sand, so to speak, but I know that there's a lot of warriors out there that are, campaigning their causes and all the rest of it. But I think sometimes you do have to stop and smell the flowers, appreciate the day for which you have. But I just wanted to say as well too, you also have to go back to our catchphrase, which is question everything, Steve. I think we have to re-look at things again. Patch Adams was a perfect example of that. Yeah, somebody who didn't believe in the status quo, who challenged it under a lot of duress, under a lot of attacks, but he was right. And that came to fruition. I mean, the fact that they even made a movie about him with Robin Williams, right? He was vindicated. But, the fight's worth the fight. But at the same time, you can't constantly be fighting. You need that downtime. So, let's do a podcast on humour and endorphins and how it affects the body and how it... Because, you can't be 100% on all the time.
Correct.
You've got to have that downtime.
This is all good, nerdy stuff, but at the end of the day, we got to talk about things like humour, love, life, and diet and exercise and sleep and just the basic stuff.
It's funny, Steve, how so much of it comes back to the basics of good food, good sleep, good rest, and good exercise. Those things are so important. Then you throw in, as you say, good relationships. Now we're starting to cook.
Yep. Now we're cooking.
Anyway.
All right, we've got a bit over time, eh?
Well, and we've got to go out for a hug, Steve. So thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll be back next week with some humour.
Yes.
All right, see you then. Bye.
See you later. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My soul is sleeping somewhere dark.
Yeah, that's it.
Ba, 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 ba.
No, that's Barbara Ann.
Whoa, Black Betty. Barbara Ann. Whoa, Black. Easy good. Ebenezer good. You never heard that one? Anyone got any salmon? Sorted. Naughty. Very naughty. Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn time.
A land called Hollowly. Yeah.
I am the walrus. I am the walrus.
You wouldn't like that.
Cuckoo.
Oh, yeah. I read the news today, oh boy. Oh, it is a...
No, Saturday night. Where the soul sins of swing.
Even if I'm a dance. Yeah, that song, don't you?
Well, I feel a little bit better after that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
a bit more cathartic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've got to be careful I don't get too lean, Steve.
Yeah, same here. All the girls.
Yeah, it's just, it's not easy, but it's worth it.
I'm not recording it. Yes, the red light camera's on.
Red light.
Bit of world news for today.
Yeah.
Roxanne.
And the Beatles say, "Don't bring me down."
Lucy in the
Sky with diamonds.
Welcome everyone to the AGP songs. If you're feeling depressed, I know how you feel. Oh. All right, ready?